Hello and welcome to the Guided Growth Podcast. Today I'm joined by Mark Fox. Mark Fox is the brain behind the Kahunas platforms and many other platforms that you might have used, trained by JP at John Jewett University. Mark is an incredible entrepreneur, and it's very easy to see what makes him successful and what's the mindset that he goes into place for him to build these big coaching platforms. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me, Mark.
Yeah, no worries. It's an absolute pleasure. As I said, like when I got your message on Instagram, I went onto your Instagram, had a look at what you do, checked out your website as well, and it looks like you're getting some awesome results. So I was delighted to jump on the podcast with you.
Yeah, and I'm pretty new to making content, so I've only actually been doing it for 2 months. I resisted for a long time.
Yeah,
So I feel as though I was a bit of a dinosaur because I didn't want to give in to content. I actually wanted to be in the beginning, not in front of the camera. I was quite shy. So
sure.
that curve of me now giving in, and then the change curve that you go through, and then you finally accept it, then you embrace it. And now I'm at that embracing stage where I can talk a lot more comfortably.
Nice. What was the initial like motivation for you to do it?
It was I thought every business now you have to be a faceless, you can't be a faceless brand. In the past, people will buy a brand and it didn't have to have a face to it. But now more and more with content marketing, people feel connected and they build trust to a face and to a person. So if I had released Guided Growth just as a company, I don't think it would have worked. And I think I needed to be the face for it. And I can see that straight away in the first 8 months of performance compared to the other 2 months where I hadn't been making content, and it's drastically different because the marketing channel has completely changed, which means I had to change my game and change my whole be in front of the camera and just be myself.
For sure. Yeah, it's a huge difference. It's been a massive shift.
And has it been the same for you? Because have you been making content since the very start of Kahunas, or is it a new thing?
Yeah, but the same as you, it was one of those things that I don't like being in front of the camera. And so I've always been, throughout my career, I've been the guy behind the scenes that's been responsible for like digital strategy, technical infrastructure, putting in the business strategy and helping to scale and grow and having the technical infrastructure to support that. And so I would always work with someone that was brilliant in front of the camera. And so that combining our skills meant that we had success. And then doing Kahunas, in the beginning, I tried to be kind of not a faceless business, but I tried the generic kind of posts that companies would put out. And it didn't feel right, to be honest, but also it's really crappy at engagement and trying to build trust with people.
It is that. And obviously on the topic of Kahunas, how long have you been going now? Because you've obviously grown massively. Have you surpassed 2,500 users now, or is that the number?
No, we're up to 2,700 and like 2,700 and 9 or 10 or something this morning when I checked.
Nice. And did that growth, like how long have you been going, and when was the spike? Has it all been linear, or has it just been an exponential growth since you've changed something?
Yeah, great question. So we officially launched about 21, 22 months ago. So our second birthday is going to be in July. And when we initially launched, it was kind of slow to get started. And I always advise this with anyone launching anything is in the beginning, you want to launch your MVP, so your minimal viable product, to make sure that what you're doing makes sense. Because if you're going to spend like 2, 3, 4, 5 years building something and you put it out there, the market could have changed. The thing you're building might not be what someone wants. It might not resonate with your audience, and you've wasted all this time and energy. And so for me, it was about day one, we need to get something out, and then where do we go from there? And it was very quickly for me to identify that the only way this works is by having coaches involved in building out the platform. So rather than me saying, you guys need this is how this is going to work, and this is what you should do, it's a case of like, right, what do you want and how can we make it better? And then building it from there. And for us, like over the first 18 months, so up until like October last year, it was just about making sure we had the basics right and that the like fundamentals were in place, both from a technical infrastructure to be able to support our growth, but also that the system was stable so that people weren't going to have like crashes and bugs and all these things going wrong all the time. And at that point, only then was I comfortable to implement our digital like marketing strategy and to start to push like with all of our ads. And then from there, we experienced over the last so up until December, we had 1,000 coaches, and then from December till now, we've got 2,710.
Incredible. So that's quite out of the box. So initially, when you think of most brands,
Mhm.
they decide who they are, their core mission, and then they go for, right, are we going to go for paid or organic ads? But you actually didn't.
Yeah,
You went for networking with trainers and with
yeah,
coaches, and then using their face and then advocating for Kahunas as a
yeah,
way to launch.
exactly right. Yeah, the for me, the community has been the biggest success for Kahunas. And it was so in the beginning, just through my experience, like I've got this really good network of coaches that I have just spoken to, worked with just through association and being in the kind of small niche of fitness and bodybuilding. And when we launched, a number of them came on to help me get to grips with what it was we're doing. And I would work with them every single day. We'd have calls to figure out what they needed. And it was very apparent just with the shift of everything as well. And I think coming, through COVID and all that stuff, there's a sense of like unity in people and communities and people wanting to be a part of something. And with that, like us working together, we've managed to build out this incredible platform. And all the way up until the end of last year, it was just 100% referral based. So people just getting the word out. And honestly, just having conversations with people to make sure that we were doing a good job.
Yeah, that's really it's very harder to leave a community. It's very easy to leave a platform, a gym
Yeah.
membership, but it's hard to leave a community because we
Mm.
build friendships. When I worked at Virgin Active, we would see the people that would stay, for the ones that would use the classics, were far more likely to stay in the gym membership because they would build a community. So whether you did
Yeah.
yoga, whatever class you did, you end up building a community within that gym, and then you don't want to leave. And then the lifetime value is just far higher because of the community element.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it's all been about. Like having that. We actually just in our Facebook group, we just hit like 1,000 coaches in the Facebook group itself. And so in our group now, like every single day, like so I wake up at like 4 in the morning. And the moment I wake up, the first thing I do is I'll jump in the Facebook group. And then throughout the day, whenever I get a chance, I'll jump in there. And if we send out every Friday, I send out an email to everyone directly from me. And in every email we've got like nearly 5,000 subscribers on it. And so 2,700 of them as coaches. In
Mhm.
every email, I always put like, hit reply. And I promise you, it comes back to me and I'll reply to you personally. And I do. Every single person that replies, I'll have a conversation with. I'll figure out what we can do better for them. Or sometimes they just want to say, like, it's amazing. Thank you. But I think it's so important to have that relationship with because they're not just coaches in our system. They're the whole reason that Kahunas is what it is. And so I really want them to feel part of it.
It's incredible. And so just to jump back a little bit,
Yeah.
so you're a web developer initially, and
Mm.
then you've got involved in the bodybuilding fitness. So very early on, your skill obviously is networking because you've constantly networked with the right people and the people that you want to work with, and then built these systems out from there. So
Yeah.
how did you initially start in the bodybuilding and fitness space? Were you already a bodybuilding fan, or did you just get connected to this group of people?
Yeah, good question. All right. So initially, I'm a self-taught web developer and coder, and I just going back slightly before that was I worked for a recruitment agency when I was very young, and within like 2 weeks of being at a recruitment agency, I decided that who needs this? I could do this on my own. Like I could do this from my bedroom. And so I left the recruitment agency and decided, not decided, I was like, I need a website because if I'm calling up clients, they need to see this website that can show them who I am, what my business is.
Yeah.
But I called up all these development companies at the time and they were like, yeah, it's 6 grand for a website. It's 10 grand for a website. And at that time, I was like in my, I don't know, early 20s, I guess, something like that, late teens. And that was a lot of money. Like to me, that was like huge. If someone's got 5 grand to spend on something, that's like huge amounts of money. And so I couldn't afford it. And I was just like, how do I build a website? So I think back then I went to the library, got books, and literally day in, day out for like sat there reading books and like coding a little bit, putting it
Yeah.
live, seeing what it looked like, and go back and forward and doing that. And ultimately, the recruitment business did quite well, but then the recession hit in the UK, lost the business, and then all I had left was like this skill of building websites. So no money, this skill building, pretty rubbish websites at the time. I was like, I don't want to go and get a job for someone else. I need to make money doing this. So then
Yeah.
for family, friends, and everyone, I was just like, look, I'll do your website for, I think I started like £50. And then it got up to like £75. And then eventually I was charging like £295. And I was building all these websites for small businesses, and it allowed me to build up lots of experience, to like develop my skill as a coder and developer, working for myself. Eventually, I got one other person on to start helping me. And then that kind of went tits up as well, unfortunately. And during around this time, I just got into bodybuilding and fitness. So I started doing, just for training, I started training for a triathlon, but I've got
Yeah.
some old injuries from a motorbike accident when I was younger. And so during the triathlon training, my knee gave out and I wasn't able to continue cycling and running. And so I had this bug for the gym. So I started going to the gym and like then got into bodybuilding. And I would go on the forums, and Jordan Peters at the time and Ben Pekulski.
Which forums were you using? Was it bodybuilding.com? Was it T Nation? Was it what forums were they?
All of them, I think. Like anyone I could find.
Yeah.
I was just, but I would follow religiously. Like Jordan used to post his like stuff on there all the time.
I remember
I
saying,
do.
yeah,
And I would like I'd follow that religiously. And then like I got Jordan to like prep me for a bit, and then not prep me, but like just help me grow. And then I went out to see him when he was like a personal trainer in Birmingham.
yeah,
We sat. My wife had like booked for my birthday to go and see him, and we sat down, and I was like, oh, he was like talking about doing some sort of client management thing at that time, and I was like, oh, with everything you do, it'd be really cool if like you had a website and we could put your content on it and people could access it and all this stuff. Um, and we kind of built something out of nothing that we didn't know what it was going to be. And I remember we were so excited when we got like 500 people. We were charging £5.99 a month, £5.99, and we got so excited when we got 500 members. It was like minds blown. Um, and then with that as well, I was very into like what Ben Pekulski advocated, because he was kind of anti-bro training, just like Jordan was. And I
yeah,
really resonated with a lot of stuff he did. And so I remember like basically pestering Ben Pekulski, just emailing him, DMing him on social. And I was like, um, Ben, like, I want to work with you. Like, here's the stuff I can do. Like, here's what I think you should do with this, that, and the other. And eventually he agreed to have a call with me. And I remember getting on this call. It was at stupid o'clock in the morning because he was in Tampa. And we're in the UK. And it was like late at night for him. It was early hours in the morning for me. And I was like, I still now remember shaking, like with anxiety and heart palpitations, like getting on a call with Ben Pekulski. Like at this point, he's stepping on the Olympia stage, like one of the
yeah.
best in the world. And I'm like nervous, and I'm like, yeah, Ben, I can like, I'll do anything. I can build this. I could do that. I could do whatever. And it just so happened that at this point in time, there were areas of his team that he needed development in and help with the technical infrastructure. So he was like, all right, we'll give it a go. And then we gave it a go. And he then brought me in as like a business partner into his business. And I built out all the technical infrastructure there with Ben and helped him with the relaunch of like MI40X and that sort of stuff. And then with Jordan, we continued to build out Trained by JP. And then we built out the apps on that. And then through Ben, I met Joe Bennett. And then with Joe Bennett, we got into business together and built that out. And then with that, things just evolved. And through this like little network, Joe then recommended me to Eugene. Joe also recommended me to John Jewett. And
Yeah.
so that's then how I built those relationships and other relationships along the way that I've worked with those people as well.
That's amazing. And obviously, there was an early on skill from working at in your recruitment agency
Mhm.
around connecting with people, which obviously comes into fact when you're now stacking on top of your web developer and you've got these new skills and you keep combining them and building out your business. But
Yeah.
with Trained by JP, I was probably one of the early 500 subscribers on there, and I
Nice.
remember 5.99 logging in and seeing the amount of content on there, and
Yeah.
I think I would always use it on my computer and I would always log in. And you made a video, it might have been a podcast recently, and you said when people are consuming e-learning, a lot of the times they're sat at their computer and they're
Yeah.
ready to learn and they're separating that time. And I remember that's exactly what I was doing at the time. I would
Awesome.
be taking time away, and that e-learning format, which was very early on, let's say it's 2016, 2017,
Mm.
that you was kind of putting out that content then, and it was done in a very digestible format. And obviously, when you've now gone on to build this method for so many others, it's just a repeatable process. You know exactly what the user wants, how it should
Yeah.
look, and it's and now that experience, you've obviously funneled it all into Kahunas on how a user-friendly software, but now the utility is so different.
Yeah. And it's all about, like, for anyone, it's never the way you want things to be done, right? You have to remove the barrier to entry for any potential
Yeah.
like customer. The easier you can make it for someone to make a purchase, just the more likely they are to do it. Like, I know for myself that often I'll pay more for things just because of the convenience of how easy it is to purchase. And you have to think about how your end user is consuming your content, or where your audience actually is. Like, so there's no point, for instance, if I was a coach or something and I was going to target, people in their 40s or mums in their 40s, I'm probably not going to do it on Instagram, because that's just not where they're going to be. As much as I like using Instagram, they're not going to be there. And the same if I'm going to target people under the age of 25, I'm probably not going to use Instagram. And it's about, like, identifying who that customer is, and then connecting with them on their level, and providing them with the tools that they expect to use without having to learn new behaviors, in order to get them into your service, and then to build a community around like-minded individuals.
Mm.
And it's tough because Kahunas itself is built for everyone to be able to use. And so that, for us, the only way we could ensure that everyone's getting what they want is to then move our development into a feature request, whereby you as a coach, we you can put your idea up on the board. So any idea is welcome. And then other people will vote on it. And then we'll take those best ideas to continue to develop it. And that ensures that we're always giving coaches exactly what they want.
Yeah. And so as the technology is developing in AI, and now coaches are starting to use these chat boxes in different formats of AI, whether it's be pictures or text or video,
Yeah.
is that something that an AI technology that you might be implementing into Kahunas? Is this thinking further down the line of how can you constantly evolve Kahunas into the future platform?
Yeah, exactly right. AI is going to be a massive part of what we do, but I don't ever want to remove the trust and personal relationship that coaches have with their clients,
Yeah.
because that really is where the value is, right? And so, even if, I mean, if you surveyed probably, like, I'm just hypothetically coming up with this, right? But if you surveyed 1,000 people, depending on their age group again, so if people are in their late 30s, 40s, let's say, and you ask them if you could get the exact same plan from a coach as you could from an AI, would you prefer a coach or an AI? And most of them, I would argue, are going to say they're going to prefer a coach, because it's not just about having the plan, it's the personal relationship. It's building that trust and having someone that you can go to, someone that understands your pain and the suffering, everything you've had to go through to get an end result. And an AI currently isn't able to understand that. And so, what I want to do at Kahunas is provide you with the prompts and tools so that you can do your job more efficiently. And so, what I mean by that is, let's say you've got 60 clients and we've integrated wearables. That's coming in like October, right? So imagine that's in place. Imagine we've got our new nutrition builder, workout builder. So you've now got thousands of data points for Sally or whoever your client is.
Yeah.
And you now have to go through all of that to figure out what is happening with Sally. And because you have 30, 40, 50 clients, each time you go into a client each week, you're going to have to recap and go through all this data again to figure out where you're at. And what I want to do is use AI to really simplify that process right down into benchmarking Sally's data against everyone else. So if we have 100,000 users, we can benchmark Sally for her demographic against every single other person in there. And then you logging into the system, we can say, Sally, in comparison to everyone else, is struggling with X, Y, and Z. This is what you should look at. And then it will guide you to where you might want to check things out in order to make decisions. And ultimately, through automation, eventually we'll get to a point of you could press a button, it would implement that. But in the beginning, it's just going to help you navigate that data so that you can make better decisions for your clients.
That's amazing. And obviously, if you implement changes too fast, users will get confused and it'll deter them from using the app.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, you don't, like, you never want, and this is why my argument against spreadsheets is that
Yeah.
you don't want clients, you don't want to send over a spreadsheet to a client with a Loom video saying, like, here's where you're going to plot everything, go to this tab to do this and the other, and back and forward. Like, you're trying to get your client to develop a whole new habit in something that they've never done. And imagine someone in their like mid 20s or late 20s, and they just don't use spreadsheets in any aspect of their life, and you're asking them to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you give someone an app that literally you log into the app and it says check in and there's a button that says check in, or it says workout and there's a button that says workout, like you're removing like the pain for your clients to have to use your service. And the easier you can make that, then the more likely they are to stay with you, enjoy the experience, and have less resistance to continue.
And on the coach's perspective, the faster I can make it, the more clients I can fulfill in a shorter period, the more money I can make.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point. Is automation isn't about allowing you to scam people, con people, do a crappy job. It's about automation is making your output more efficient. If you can put like this much input and get that much output instead of this much input and that much output,
Yeah.
then like why wouldn't you do it? It's there to designed to help you make your life easier and more efficient and just save you time in the stuff that and I always say this, we want to give you the tools and systems so that you don't have to do the things that you shouldn't be doing, like trawling through data, figuring stuff out. Like you're a coach, you have the expertise and knowledge and the relationship with your client to know what to do. We're just going to guide you in that process. And then you ultimately make the decisions.
Yeah. That's amazing. And there's when I think back to every platform that you've been involved in,
Yeah.
you've you've always been able to identify the pain points. So when I look at Trained by JP, you were very clear in the demographic you were going for. It was not fitness. It was a very, even within bodybuilding, it was very niche.
Yeah.
And that obviously we now know, we've always known that being as niche as possible is the best thing that you can do because you'll target that one core people. Again,
Yeah.
going back into community building. And then when you look at Gambaru, when you look at John Jewett, they're very different, and these platforms target people in very different ways. So have you been heavily involved in not just the data side, but literally in the marketing point of who are we actually talking, who are we trying to speak to, and how are we going to help?
Yeah, exactly right. It's not that and, and involvement to me is kind of is common sense because
Yeah,
we're not reinventing the wheel with anything, right? It's if we look at John Jewett and what he offers, then we will just have a conversation about who our potential person is that's going to purchase from us, right? And we will actually would draw this out. So I would, for example, sit down with John, give a bunch of questions, and we'll write out our exact customer persona. Who are they? What do they do? What do they like doing? What are their habits? Like everything, because and ultimately these people mirror generally the person who you're working with. So we didn't do this with Jordan because for us, for Jordan and I, it was just so obvious who his audience is. But your audience is 9 times out of 10, it's people just like you, because people like them. If you look around all of your friends, you may have one quirky friend that's a bit different, but most of your friends are going to be interested in similar sports as you, similar, they have similar financial like status as you. They're gonna like your network is people very similar to you because we like people like us. And so if you can take that and give and put it out online, then you'll build a community of like-minded people. And there's
yeah,
no point in trying to you'd never be able to sell like I couldn't sell John Jewett's course to like a mum who's like training other mums. Like that's just never going to work. So it's very important to identify like who is your customer and what your brand is. Like what does that stand for and what does it mean to your customer?
your audience end up kind of being a mirror of you. So you
Yeah,
mirror the audience because you look at yourself, and that's who you end up creating and who end up connecting with you because of who you
yeah,
are. And
exactly.
recently on Kahunas, you've been making a lot more content. I've seen a lot more short form content as well popping up on my feed,
Yeah.
whether it's been recently been done or you've always done it. Um, so now I can recognize when you're saying thank you for what you've done with the platform and you're informing people of what you're going to be doing. I think it helps people connect with you as well. So, like, what's been your core mission from not just building Kahunas, but just you as a person?
My core mission is so I always say this to people like all of us, every single one of us has the same end goal, which is to be happy, whatever that means to you as an individual. Um, we all just want to strive for happiness. And my goal is just to not be an asshole. Like, and I feel like that's one of the secrets to everything, right? Is that if
Yeah,
you, if in everything you do, you're transparent, you're honest, and you're not an asshole, and you just talk to people like we're all in the same boat, we're all trying to achieve this end goal of being happy, there's no reason why anything I'm ever doing should ever impact you in a negative way, ever.
Yeah.
Like, we can all live our own individual lives, going our own separate ways without being assholes to each other. And by creating like these communities of like-minded people that we can all just help and spur each other on to get to where we need. There's no like, I kind of get not pissed off a bit, but there's no gimmicks or tricks or things to do in success. It's people always see someone that's successful and they look at like Joe or John or anybody and they see them, and or even muscle building, right? You look at the person who's got big muscles and you want to know what is the one thing that person is doing that I'm not doing that allows them to have muscles. And there's nothing different. They've just been doing it probably longer than you, more consistently than you. And so for all of us, it's just we work hard, we put in the hours, and there's a little bit of luck involved in it in terms of people you meet and where you're born in the world and all that stuff. But all of us, our end goal is just to be happy. And we should all just work together to do that without being assholes.
So are you as a person very much someone who lives in the present rather than, because anxiety is about thinking in the future and then
Yeah.
regret is in the past. So you very much a present being in the, like you naturally think like you're in present all the time.
Yeah, I do. And the reason for that, like my wife is actually the opposite. So my wife is always the person that's thinking 10 steps ahead. And she's wondering like if I said to her tomorrow, oh, let's open an office in Dubai, she'd be thinking about what furniture we need, like for specific parts of the office, even though we haven't even got an office yet. And whereas I'm the person that's, until this has happened, we don't need to worry about all of this stuff that may or may not happen. And I find that that allows me not to be distracted by like what ifs, like possibilities of things. Like
Yeah.
I'm just right now, I have one focus and one drive, and every day I'm waking up in order to I'm doing the same things every single day. The moment I wake up, the moment I go to bed, but it's with purpose of a desired outcome. But I don't worry about the ifs, ands, and buts of that. I know the outcome will be a byproduct of the day-to-day things that I'm doing.
Yeah. And so I love business. Something that I really studied is people within business.
Mm,
Uh, when you look back through history and look at any big business that's grown over 50 million, there's been actually two characters involved in the business, a barbarian and a visionary. And the visionary is someone that kind of plans and looks further down the line. And the barbarian is that fights the daily battles of operations, doing all the hard work. So one part of it is that I'm recognizing that you are a type of visionary because you're constantly building future-proof platforms, which you've
mm.
done for the last 6, 7 years. And then the other part, you're still doing the daily battle. So within Kahuna's brand, are you actually wearing both hats? Is there someone that you've got alongside you, or are you wearing both of these hats every day?
Yeah, I wear both hats every day. And it's because I'm like, honestly, I'm obsessive compulsive with stuff. And I hate doing a shit job for people. Like truthfully, I obsess over it. And so for me, I remember having a conversation with Elliot Wise, who's like a good friend of mine, super successful entrepreneur, like in multiple different businesses. And he came over to Dubai and we had a meeting and we sat down at a table. This was like last year. And he was saying, like, we're talking about Kahunas. And I was like, yeah, I'm still doing all the support on Kahunas. And he was like, well, what do you mean? And I went, I've got no support people. I'm doing all the messaging every day to everyone. And he was like, what? Why are you doing that? Why haven't you got people in? And I said, because I need to understand on a granular level exactly what the pain points are of the people using our system. Like until I've figured that out and I've had those conversations, I
Yeah,
don't want anyone else taking care of that because things will get overlooked and missed. So I need to understand things and that's very much my character. Like I can't just be told something is the way it is because someone said so. I have to find out for myself in the minutest possible detail why something is the way it is so that
yeah,
I can understand it. And so I was doing like up until end of last year, probably like September, I was doing all, whether it was a DM on Instagram or Facebook or email message, I was doing every single email alongside growing and scaling the business because I needed to understand that. And so that's the like barbarian side, like wearing that hat. But then
yeah,
I do have, I mean, I am a visionary for it. I know what this platform needs to become. It's just I'm not anxious about it because I know that although I have this defined outcome of where I want to get to, that's a fluid process. It's
yes,
not if I sat here today and said in 5 years I want X to happen with Kahunas, it's not going to be that. It will be a version of that. So I'm not going to get stressed or anxious about that right now because things will change and we will have problems and speed bumps and shit will happen along the way. But I've been through that enough times. I just know that if I just keep going,
Yes. You've given yourself the evidence in the past. You know that you can do it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's so your anxiety, you wouldn't have it because if you've done it over and over again, subliminally, you know that I've done this before. I've gone through a territory that I've never done, and I can keep repeating.
Yeah. And I'm honestly a believer of like, what's the worst that can happen, right? So
Yeah.
if tomorrow everything disappeared, then I end up at exactly where I was 10 years ago. And that doesn't phase me because twice I've been like on the brink of bankruptcy. At one time it was really serious where I sat across the table from an insolvency practitioner and he was like, you have to declare bankruptcy. I didn't. And so I know what that feels like. I don't ever want to go back to that. But if I did, I know that it's just a brief period in time. It's like if you divide your life up into chapters in a book, there are some chapters in a book that are going to be soul destroying, devastating, make you cry, make you miserable. There are going to be other chapters in that book that are like times for celebration and happiness and everything's amazing.
Yeah.
And you'd hope that the end chapter is going to be like this big success story. But it, if the worst thing's going to happen is that I end back up back there, I'm still healthy. I've still got years left. Like we can do it all again.
I love that. And I'm a big reader in Stoicism, so I love Stoic philosophy. And
Mm,
in the last 4 years, I feel that someone was asking me recently that you've been doing really well and your business has been growing. And I explained to that person, I'm due failure. So
yeah.
I'm yet to have failure, a big failure. I've not hit rock bottom in a while. So
Mm,
it's inevitable. Everything good will end. So I'm gonna be hitting rock bottom, but how will I react? How will I come
yeah.
back? Obviously, my goal is to keep winning, but in life there's going to be knocks, and when the next one comes, you want to be ready. And that's the type of character, that mindset that you've got to have to be able to handle it.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you said. You said, how will I come back? And that's I think the big thing because, and not just in business, but in life, right? I think more people are more vocal about this in everyday life than previously, but people suffer with anxiety, depression, have days where maybe they don't want to get out of bed. And it's important to know that that period is finite. That's not going to last forever. Like feelings come and go. And quite often for me, my greatest performance comes after those days. So, in all aspects, in business, if it's gone shit, the next week is normally 10 times better. If, like with depression, anxiety, if I ever am in that state where I don't want to do stuff, and we all have those days, coming off the back of that is where I have my greatest moments. And I think that's true for a lot of people. It's just recognizing that it's how you come out of it and that those periods are finite. They're not going to last forever.
Yeah, I can recognize in your character that you're the complete opposite of entitled. And when I when I take on a lot of coaches, recently I've got some coaches that have a large following, let's say 50K to 500K on across the social media platforms, and a lot of the times they come with frustration, which is I'm not making any money. My friends who have less following than me are making far more. They've not understood how to monetize.
Mm,
And these are the same individuals that would never be messaging everyone on that you're
yeah,
doing that relentless work because you were wearing every hat before you started to give them out and be like, okay, I can let go of this hat now because I've done it
yeah,
all. I've done every job. So a big turning point that I'm having with coaches is I'm having to identify, is this person willing to wear every hat? Or do
yeah,
they see words like scale on Instagram so early and they think, right, I'm going to be able to scale my company up within to this level because they hear
yeah.
all these big figures and numbers.
Yeah, I agree. And as far as entitlement, every single day, genuinely, I'm grateful that I even exist. And that might sound crazy, but there was I remember reading recently a mathematician who wrote out in a very he used a really great way of explaining your odds of actually being alive. If you have 2 million dice and each dice has a trillion sides and you roll those 2 million dice and they all land on the same number, that's the same odds as you actually existing at all. And for me, that's like so improbable that I'm even going to be here, that the fact that I get to live in this virtual world of digital space where I can have conversations with people in something I enjoy, get excited about getting out of bed for. Like I would do this for free. Like the fact that I get paid to do it to me is like a bonus. Like I'm so excited, so grateful at that. And I think that sometimes we all need a bit of perspective as to our position in the world and what it is that we're doing. And anybody that's worried about scale, earning money, and all that stuff, those people ultimately, in my opinion, don't make it. It's the so Jordan Peters, as an example, right? He's the best example of this. Never ever did he question about how much money Train by JP was ever making. And this isn't just in the website, this was in the nutrition and the clothing as well. So because of my relationship in the website with him, when the clothing and nutrition was launching, I had a big part in that with Jordan and Corin as well. And at no point did they ever care about the numbers, because day in, day out, they fucking loved it. Every day of their life was amazing that they get to do this as their life, and money was just a byproduct of the enjoyment and like success and passion that they had. It was never a focal point. And I think those people that just do it because they love it are the ones that end up being the most successful.
Yeah, and you know James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, wrote there's two
Yeah.
types of people. He wrote there's people who are trying to get to the destination and the goal, and some people that just want the journey.
Mm.
And the people that want the journey actually go way further
Yeah.
because they just think about everything differently. They're so much more introspective. They think about reality so different just because they're living through each day.
Mm. I couldn't ever imagine retiring, like ever. Because it's like my wife thinks I'm, I don't know, crazy because I have this like insatiable desire to work, and I hate even calling it work because it's really not. It's like, and I describe it as, you remember when you were a kid and it was like 4 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day, and you know you're not supposed to get up because your parents have told you you cannot get up. It's Christmas Day. It's
Yeah.
4 o'clock in the morning. You have to wait. For me, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I wake up and I get that feeling of like Christmas Day. Like I get to go downstairs and I get to be in a house in Dubai, talking to people and doing stuff. And as a result of that, it's making money. And it's just the greatest thing ever.
I actually call my work my duty, and I call it duty just because it has to be done. It's
Yeah.
not work.
Yeah. It's not, it's just part of your life.
And when we look at the most successful people, so let's say we looked at billionaires and we looked at
Mm.
how they've become billionaires, they have a warped sense of reality. And a lot of the times, the billionaire is not going to enjoy this beachfront house. It's going to be his family. He's going to be thinking about work. He's going to be thinking about the next thing. So you've created actions from your way of thinking to have all this, well, whatever most people would see as wealth. But in your mind, it's not about the money. It's about the journey. And from the
Yeah.
outside, many people wouldn't ever see that. They just see the
Yeah.
material things, not the introspective person that you are inside, because your character changing is what actually built your business.
Mm.
As your character evolves and you stacked all the skills on top of your character evolving, Kahunas, Mark Fox's business, continue to grow.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. And that does resonate with me because anytime we go on vacation or anything, I hate it.
Yeah.
Like we go on vacation and for like the first 2 days, when I say don't be an asshole, the first 2 days on a vacation, I'm an asshole because I hate the fact that I'm not in my bubble. I actually said to my wife yesterday, we were driving back from Abu Dhabi yesterday,
Yeah.
and I said to her that my office is like literally, it must be, I don't know, 3 meters by 3 meters or something, like it's tiny. And I have this standing desk. And I said to my wife, I know why I'm happiest in my office. It's because there's no one else there. There's no distractions. It's just me. It's just me in this literal like virtual bubble that I exist in for like 15 hours a day. That to me is everything. I love it. And I generally couldn't care less about anything materialistic ever. It's
Yeah.
nice to have nice things, but I, it doesn't it doesn't have any sense of meaning to me.
One of my favorite authors, Robert Greene, writes in a very dark room because he creates an environment
Yeah.
that will make his mind that same mindset he's trying to build in the books as well. So
Mm.
you kind of want to create that perfect environment around you. There's no windows, there's no distractions, there's
Yeah,
nothing that's going to take your eyes away. And if you can go into deep work, that's a skill itself, being able to involve in deep work. How do
yeah,
you how do you kind of like balance your routine then? So you wake up very early, which you mentioned. So
yeah.
what's your day normally look like? Or is there a day where is there a part of the day where you're in real deep work, or are you just taking your content? How do you organize everything?
Yeah, good question. So content for me is I'll do a batch of content on a day that I feel that I can handle doing content. And so so like this, being in this conversation and in my bubble, then I seem like a very normal, well-rounded person that's
Yeah.
capable of dealing with anything. But the reality is that in the actual outside world, I struggle greatly. I have huge difficulties in like social interactions, in big open spaces, in like so many different. Like if I go to a restaurant, I have to sit in a certain place. If we go to the cinema, I have to sit in a certain place. Like everything has to be booked, and I have to know ahead of time exactly what's happening and taking place. Like so, in this environment, um, it, it's very controlled, and so my day is literally it's pretty much the same every single day. So I get up at like 4 in the morning, wake up. First hour, I'll be answering anything that's happened overnight because our team work around the globe. So I'll check the Slack channel, jump into the Facebook group, do all the things that just are. There's a lot of tasks, but I can handle very quickly. And especially at that time in the morning, there's very few distractions, so I can just kind of smash through them. And then after I've done that, just check through my checklist of things that I'm going to be doing today, like things that are my priorities. Things so I have like things that have to get done, and then things that I would like to get done, but if not, they could go into like the following day. Then about an hour or two after getting up, I'll take the dogs for a walk. So I take them out for like 45 minutes, come back, work again. Normally my wife gets up and then we'll have like a 5 minute, hey, like, do you have a good night's sleep and that stuff? Get ready, go to the gym. We do like an hour at the gym, come home, and then I'll work from the moment we get home until I have to. And that's some days I could finish at 6, but other days I might not finish till 8, 9, on very rare days, 10, 11. But generally that's it. And that's 7 days a week. Although we go to cinema once a week. So on a Thursday, it has to be a Thursday at like 12, 1 o'clock, we'll go to cinema.
Okay, so that's your one thing where when you're watching a movie, are you able to switch off from your phone? Are you able to detach yourself and just be immersed, or is your mind still busy?
No, so I'm actually going back to cinema this Thursday to watch the same film we watched last Thursday
Yeah.
because the most of the film I was on my phone.
Yeah, I'm guilty of this as well, and that's why I asked because I can recognize, like if I'm with someone, I know it's bothering them that I'm on my phone, but my
Yeah,
mind is elsewhere.
yeah. I'm just like, and it's almost like in those moments I'm on my phone that the cinema doesn't exist. It
Yeah.
as loud as it is and the big screen and lights and everything. In that moment, I may as well be here in my room. It's like nothing else exists outside of this little bubble that I've got myself in. And so that's why I need to go back and watch this film again because uh, like it just didn't exist for me in those moments that I was like working.
So users will benefit from your compulsive way of thinking because you'll create great things. People around you will be affected in a different manner because you're too busy creating things for others rather than being in the present. Because obviously we're talking about being in the present and future, and one part of being in the present is actually noticing what's around you. But
Yeah.
I think it's always hard to switch off. I think it's going to be for anyone that's chasing a really big goal, especially when you're like, how big is the Kahunas team now? How many people are you actually working with?
So we have because currently, so I'm still working with John Jewett and Joe Bennett, hypertrophy coach, and they're going really well. So that Kahunas combined, I just hired 2 more people, so we've got like 43 people across the team now.
So there's 43 people, and then that same team of developers and coders will also be helping the other businesses that you're involved in.
So those teams are like then segmented out. So we have like a project manager and developers and teams specific for John and for Joe, and then we have a team specific for Kahunas as well.
That's great, and I guess that that scale that you've seen through your business, is there now a pivotal point where Kahunas is going to need another part of growth, or is it going to be going steady with this staff?
Yeah, we're like on constant hire right now.
Yeah,
So I think realistically by end of the year, we'll have probably close to 100 people, I think. Um, and the technical infrastructure is uh, getting very large in
yeah,
terms of like what we have to do. An important thing for me is, let's say, for example, that a bug does occur, that bug shouldn't affect everyone else's experience on the platform. And so you need an extremely comprehensive technical infrastructure to be able to continue to operate regardless of if there's one issue somewhere. And so at the moment, we're actually hiring in another company to build out our whole technical infrastructure because now it's above kind of my understanding of how it all should be.
yeah. And that's it's amazing that you recognize that. Again, it goes back into not having an ego and recognizing what your company needs is bigger than sometimes what the skills that we have. So, do you have mentors? Do you have someone that's kind of like helped you, or what's your learning been like?
No, and I feel always feel bad saying that because I know lots of people do have mentors,
Yeah,
but I've literally always been, and I know, and I'm going to say I know, and I truly, I recommend mentors to people because of the value that it gives in having. It's just a fast track for you. If someone's been there and done it, then they can tell you you're probably going to have all these things come up. Here's how you avoid them, or here's how you navigate those in your period of growth, or in coaching, or whatever it is. And I don't know why, but there's something, I guess, slightly self destructive about me that I like to go through the suffering to figure it out for myself.
yeah,
So that because if something goes wrong, I want to understand why that went wrong so
yeah,
that I can then equip myself with the tools I need to ensure that doesn't happen again. And I feel like, as beneficial as a mentor is for me, I, by facing those challenges, I feel that overall it's going to take longer to get to where I want to get to. But overall, I feel that it makes me a more comprehensive leader for like everyone in the business. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right, it makes a complete sense because you want to have the scars and you want to have the pain. So then, therefore,
Yeah.
you learn from it. And because it makes you a far better teacher having scars than just someone telling you and skipping all those steps. So I do actually get that side of it. Obviously, there is a shortcut and a cheat code, which is getting someone who's already lived through it to give you all that pathway and that jump up. But then you would never have learned those lessons from failing.
Yeah. And I love it. And that's part of the journey for me. Where you were talking earlier about like enjoying the journey and being part of the journey, that is the most exciting part. And whether it's a good or a bad thing, like if it's a bad thing, and like we said, after bad periods or periods that aren't so great, you then have these moments of greatness. It's kind of like the pain of you eventually you're doing like loads of reps on exercise in the gym and you've got all this lactic acid building up and it's painful. You're like, oh, I don't like this, it's horrible. But then the
Yeah.
moment you stop, your body's like, oh, that was awesome. And it's kind of like that with anything. Is if you go through that period of pain, it sucks at the time. But when you figure out what caused that and you fix it, that moment afterwards is like elation that we're on to the next step now. We figured that out. That's never going to happen again. And like now we can make this better.
Yeah, that's amazing. And do you know, when I'm speaking to you, I would describe you as a successful individual, but I'm not sure if you would describe yourself as a successful individual, or would you? And what does success actually look like for you?
Uh, no, I don't. And my family, well, because my family will always say that. Like they'll be like, they say, like, "Oh, you're successful and stuff," and I'm like, "Nah." Like
Yeah.
there's like I don't know. It's such a weird thing to quantify. Like, what is success or successful?
Well, your
Uh,
definition very early on was happiness. So
yeah,
if it's not tied to monetary value, it's tied to your mood.
yeah, that's very true. Um, huh, that's interesting. You put me in a predicament because I'm happy, but I don't think I'm successful. So I need to revisit that.
And I had a feeling what the best conversations I have end up being about the person introspective, where you think internally about your character. And then
Yeah.
because business, as I was mentioning before, is just an extension of our character. And that's
Mm.
why I focus very much on the character. Obviously, we can talk very technical about marketing and about platforms and about coding. We can go into detail. But the element that every coach, every entrepreneur, every business owner has to go through is in the shift of your mindset and introspection of actually
Yeah,
building your character.
I agree. It's so important. And I think you really have to block out the noise to do that. Like, stop looking at, because we could have like looked at every other platform out there, and of course we did, but we could have agonized over every other platform out there and what they do and what they represent. But for us, it was important to be true to Kahunas and who we are.
Yeah. Mark, thank you very much for giving me your time. I've actually loved speaking to you. I think that I could have told myself that I was under the impression that you're going to be a great conversation to have as well. So I think
Yes.
you fulfill that completely, and I think people who listen to this will actually take a lot from it, not only for understanding about how successful Kahunas is and how it is actually a great platform. Even some of my coaches are using it. I came first aware of it through your social media marketing, and then very early on through some advocates that you had in Dubai. So I can see what you're building, and I think it's going to be incredible. And I'm excited to see how it grows and evolves as your character grows and evolves.
Amazing. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to your podcast. I really appreciate every listener. If you want to share this podcast, comment, like, subscribe to the channel. I'm still very much a new channel. So if you please can support and share the channel with a friend, share the podcast with a friend, sharing your story. I'm really excited to build out this channel over the next few years. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed listening.